Now guys, just before we start this video, I just wanted to quickly remind you to join our AFL Fantasy and AFL tipping comps. The codes are on screen right now. All you have to do with the tipping comp is download the ESPN Footy Tips app and join up to the league. And if you win either the AFL Fantasy League or the AFL tipping comp, you will win a $100 gift voucher to the AFL store. So make sure to click the links down below, join up, and let's have some fun. But for now, let's get into today's video. Most under pressure coaches for 2025. So with people like John Longmire leaving the Sydney Swans, a lot of coaches are under pressure now going into 2025. Now on 9, the Footy on 9 have said the 8 coaches most under pressure are Matthew Nicks, Justin Longmuir, Ken Hinkley, Michael Voss, Simon Goodwin, Alistair Clarkson, Brad Scott, and Luke Beveridge. Dwayne Russell on SEN has said that Matthew Nicks is the most under pressure, followed by Justin Longmuir, Luke Beveridge, Ken Hinkley, Michael Voss, Simon Goodwin, and Brad Scott as his 7. Now, I'm going to list my most under pressure coaches. I've gone with 9 here. My most under pressure coach going into next year is Ken Hinkley, followed by Matthew Nicks at 2, Justin Longmuir at 3, Simon Goodwin at 4, Luke Beveridge at 5, Michael Voss at 6, Alistair Clarkson at 7, Brad Scott at 8, and Damien Hardwick at 9th. So what have you got there?
It's about the same list. I've started, number 1 I think is Ken Hinkley. 2 is Simon Goodwin. 3 is Justin Longmuir. 4 is Matthew Nicks. 5 is Luke Beveridge. 6 is Michael Voss. 7 is Damien Hardwick, 8 is Alistair Clarkson, and 9 is Craig McRae.
So we've only got one different. I've said Brad Scott and then 9, and you've said Craig McRae. So I guess we'll start with them one. So Craig McRae obviously had a pretty tough year last year, injury ravaged. Everyone's expecting them to rise. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
And they're going for the now. So if they don't get it, like we've been saying since the trade period, and the wheels fall off, they've kind of costed themselves.
It's going to be a steep decline for Collingwood if they don't, at least get to grand final at this point. I mean, everyone's expecting them to be, I'm thinking top 2. So I think that he is under pressure. I kind of lean on the side of that he still got them a premiership only a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think he's not as under pressure as people like Brad Scott, for example. I think that Brad Scott, the fact that he was supposed to be there when he first got the job, everyone was thinking that they're going to go back to finals, the Bombers, and potentially finally break their drought. And now they're expecting that they're going to fall under again. And he's going to have to rebuild it.
That's why I've put him as not really under pressure as much as someone like that, because the fact is that they've went to the draft a bit more this year. They've lost a few experienced players.
I don't think he's under pressure on terms of his job, but I do think that the fans will be extremely frustrated and angry if they get to round 10 and they've won 3 games. They've won 2 or 3 games. I think that's where the pressure's going to come from. I mean, he's won a couple of finals in his coaching career, but I think question marks will be made of Brad Scott midway through 2025 if he doesn't get off to a decent start. Damien Hardwick may be an interesting one because they weren't mentioned in either of the lists that were mentioned by pseudo-experts or whatever. But Damien Hardwick, I think, is under a lot of pressure. I think that, yes, he's at the Gold Coast. His first year, he's getting everything set up. But I think at this point, when are the Gold Coast going to make the finals? And, I mean, I don't have him in the 8 next year. You don't have him in the 8. So he said that 80% of his side that was there is going to win a flag.
That's why I think he's under pressure. He thinks he's pretty much got the list. He only just needs to plug a few holes. And he's been there a year and a bit now. He's going to have the game style. So if he doesn't be able to turn this around and make the finals, the pressure is going to come to him.
I think the problem is as well with Damien Hardwick is the fact that there is so much pressure on him because it's not only his legacy, I guess, of getting teams to finals and premierships, but what happens if 12 months down the track they haven't made finals? This guy was supposed to basically save the Gold Coast Suns. If they don't make finals in the next year or 2, does it get to the point, I know this is a big call, but what do they do with the Gold Coast if Damien Hardwick can't do it? Do they just get rid of them? Do they leave them in the AFL for, an 18th club that just never make it?
Well, the thing is that in 2 years, it'll be 27, 28, that's when Tassie's about to come in and all the concessions and all that start to go to them.
So I think that's why Damien Hardwick is under pressure. I put him at 9th because I still think that he's not under pressure of job or anything like that, but I think that there will be people around the footy public who'll be like, what is happening with the Suns? If it gets to that mid-season period and he hasn't done anything. I think Alistair Clarkson and Michael Voss are pretty self-explanatory. Luke Beveridge, he had it pretty high up there. Simon Goodwin may be an interesting one. A lot of people aren't expecting much from Melbourne next year, but I think the point of they've had so much go on in the last 12 months off the field, something's got to give.
That's why I think he's the second most under pressure coach.
You put him at second. I've put him at fourth, and my reasoning is fourth is because I think the other three are the fact that they have to make finals. I don't think Simon Goodwin has to make finals to keep his job, but I think he's under pressure on the fact that if they don't show some improvement somewhere, we saw throughout the year, the fans just stop going to their games. Yeah. So if they're not bringing in money and revenue through supporters, they start performing poorly, there will be pressure on him because now they've got a pseudo fan base of we are somewhat successful and we're only going to come if you're successful. So if you play like dog shit, we're not going to come. And if you play in front of the MCG, 100,000 crowd capacity, and you've got 20,000 people there, it's pretty freaking sad.
Yeah.
So I think there will be some pressure on that point. The only reason why I've got the other three in front is because of finals, and we'll get to them in a minute. So you've got him in second. Is there a reason more on to the point, or
not really? No, I would say it's about the same thing. But I think that it's like Matthew Nicks and Justin Longmuir. Matthew Nicks first. The fact is that he hasn't got them to finals yet. That if they got close in the last 2 years. He nearly got them there, and if the Swans won 2 years ago, went their way, they would have made the finals. Yeah. So he's making he's going up.
But on the point of it though, if I look at it this way. If I put 3-2-1 in the most pressured coaches to potentially lose their jobs at the end of the year, if they don't beat their pass mark or whatever. So Ken Hinkley, the reason why I've got him at number one, Ken Hinkley, is because he has to win a grand final.
Yeah, he has to
keep his job.
Yeah, he has
to.
So
that's obviously the most pressure you could be under. So that's why I put him at one. Matthew Nicks at number two is because I think they have to make finals, almost win one. And the reason why Justin Longmuir is just behind Matthew Nicks, like millimeters behind, is because I think that Justin Longmuir could survive not making finals because they've got the list.
With Justin Longmuir is the fact that he has got them to finals and won a final.
Yeah, and that's also another thing.
The thing is
a little bit lower.
And the fact is also that with Matthew Nicks is that, he hasn't got them there, but the board has given him 6 years to get up there. They can see the potential of the list that the Crows have. If he gets to finals, they could do a lot of damage, like they did 2 years ago when they were nearly there.
So you've got Matthew Nicks at 4, I've got him at 2. That's basically our sort of.
And that's why. And the thing is that since that grand final for Melbourne, they've went downhill. We're now the public eye is on them because there was so much scrutiny at the end of last year.
Throughout the whole year.
Yeah, and then it started, and it just kept on rolling through the entire year. That's why I think it's started with the alleged drug scandal of Simon Goodwin, then Joel Smith, then Clayton Oliver, and then Petrarca, and it just keeps on rolling on and on and on and on.
And then all these trade rumours coming through of different things. That went all the way through October, really.
Yeah.
So I think, I kind of see it. But at the end of the day, I think the three most under pressure coaches are Hinkley, Nicks, and Longmuir, and I think those three could potentially be. We could get to the end of the season, and all three of them have lost their job. I can see a world where Simon Goodwin gets sacked. I can, but I feel like even if they have a poor year on the ladder, I think that he can still have his job. Results aren't as big a pressure on him. I think it's morale, basically.
The public eye.
The morale, keeping the bloody names out of headlines. I think mid-year is going to be an interesting one to look at. Maybe even go back and look at these and maybe see what happens. If I could pick one coach now that's going to be sacked at the end of the year other than Ken Hinkley, and I'm sorry to Ken, but it's about the fact that he has to win a grand final.
It's the fact that there's so much pressure on him that every single fan...
It almost feels like he's out the door at the moment.
Yeah,
anyway.
Well, I think it was literally Port wrote his resignation after that trade period. To get rid of Dan Houston for such a little price...
Yeah, I think that Josh Carr's and he's in the wings waiting.
Yeah.
If I had to pick another coach that I've got inklings that's going to be sacked, I think it's going to be Matthew Nicks, because I've got the Crows in the 8, but I don't know. I think they could be very close. I think it could be very close. I have more faith in Freo at this stage. That's just me. I think it's going to be very interesting. Guys, make sure to let us know down below on the coaching front who you think is most under pressure going into 2025.
both of us have said Ken Hinkley, basically. I think a lot of people would say the same.